Have you ever done something small for a stranger and then forgotten about it, only to find out later it meant everything? On a freezing winter morning in Chicago, one simple act at a bus stop didn't just warm someone's hands, it changed two lives forever. What started as a $5 cup of coffee turned into a miracle no one saw coming. Before we begin, if you believe in the power of kindness and stories that restore your faith in humanity, make sure you subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Welcome to Kindness Story Hub, where real stories remind us that even the smallest act of kindness can echo for years. And now, let me tell you what happened. It was late January in Chicago. The kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes you question every life decision that led you outside. The wind whipped through the streets, pushing snow along the sidewalks like it had somewhere urgent to be. Emma Thompson stood at the bus stop on Clark Street, hugging her coat tightly around her. She was 34 years old, a single mom, and already exhausted before her day had even started. She worked as a receptionist at a dental office downtown, and if she missed this bus, she'd be late. Again, her 7-year-old son, Caleb, had been sick all week. She had barely slept. Her bank account was thin. And the heating bill sitting on her kitchen counter felt like a threat. She shifted her weight and noticed someone sitting on the bench at the bus stop. An older man, maybe in his late 60s, wrapped in layers that looked too thin for the weather. His gray beard was frosted with tiny bits of ice. His hands trembled as he rubbed them together. People walked by without looking. Some glanced quickly and then looked away. It was easier that way. Emma looked away too at first. She didn't have much. She had exactly $18 in her checking account until payday on Friday. She had to make that stretch for gas, groceries, and maybe medicine if Caleb didn't get better. But when the wind picked up again, she heard the man cough, a deep, painful cough that didn't sound right. She hesitated. Her bus was due in 3 minutes. There was a small coffee shop on the corner, just steps away. She could see the warm glow of lights through the window. She looked back at the man. He wasn't asking anyone for money. He wasn't holding a sign. He was just sitting there, trying to survive the cold morning. Before she could talk herself out of it, Emma turned and walked quickly to the coffee shop. She ordered the largest hot coffee they had and, on impulse, added a breakfast sandwich. That'll be $8.75, the cashier said. Emma swallowed. That was nearly half of what she had left. She paid anyway. When she walked back outside, the wind hit her face sharply, but she barely noticed. She stepped up to the bench and held out the cup. "Sir," she said gently. "I thought you might like something warm." The man looked up slowly, surprised. His eyes were watery and tired. "But kinda for me?" he asked. "Yes," Emma said, offering a small smile. "It's really cold." For a second, he just stared at the coffee like it was something sacred, then his hands wrapped around it, and he closed his eyes as the warmth spread into his fingers. "You have no idea," he whispered. "Thank you." She handed him the sandwich too. His voice cracked. "I haven't eaten since yesterday afternoon." Emma felt a lump in her throat. She nodded awkwardly. "Take care of yourself, okay?" Her bus pulled up just then. She hurried on, finding a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, she looked back. The man was holding the cup with both hands, steam rising around his face like a quiet blessing. She never expected to see him again. Life moved on. Caleb recovered. Work stayed busy. The bills kept coming. Emma forgot about that morning, tucked it away as one of those small things you do and don't think about again. 6 months later, Emma received a phone call that made her knees weak. Her landlord was selling the building. Tenants had 60 days to move out. She had no savings. Rent prices had gone up everywhere. She spent night after night scrolling through listings she couldn't afford, feeling panic rise in her chest. One Saturday afternoon, overwhelmed and desperate for a moment to breathe, Emma took Caleb to a nearby park. They sat on a bench while Caleb chased pigeons across the grass. "Mom," he suddenly said, pointing. That man is waving at you. Emma looked up across the park. Near a food truck stood a familiar face, gray beard. Kind eyes, the man from the bus stop. He was dressed differently now. Clean jeans. A thick coat. He looked healthier, stronger. He walked toward her with a slow but steady step. I was hoping I'd run into you again someday, he said, smiling warmly. Emma blinked in disbelief. You remember me? I could never forget you, he said. You bought me coffee on the coldest morning of the year. Emma laughed softly. It was just coffee. He shook his head. No. It wasn't. He sat down on the bench beside her. My name is Robert, he said. And that morning, I was at my lowest point. He explained that he had once owned a small construction business. Years ago, a bad investment and a medical emergency had drained everything. After his wife passed away, he lost the house. Pride kept him from asking for help. He ended up on the streets longer than he ever imagined possible. That morning, Robert continued, I was planning to give up. I hadn't eaten. I was cold. I felt invisible. Emma's eyes filled with tears. But then you came back with that coffee and sandwich, he said. You looked me in the eye. You spoke to me like I mattered. He paused. That small act reminded me that I wasn't invisible. That I was still human. He told her that later that same day, he walked into a local shelter and asked for help. Something he had refused to do for months. Through the shelter, he connected with a job placement program. Within weeks, he was doing part-time maintenance work. Months later, he was hired full-time by a property management company. I'm not rich, Robert said with a gentle smile. But I have an apartment. I have work. I have hope again. Emma felt stunned. I'm so glad, she whispered. Robert looked at her closely. You look worried. Emma hesitated, then found herself telling him everything about the landlord selling the building, about not knowing where she and Caleb would go. Robert listened carefully. What's the address of your building? He asked. She told him that. He smiled slowly. That's interesting, he said. The company I work for just purchased a small apartment building on that street last week. Emma's heart skipped. It wouldn't happen to be number 214, would it? Her mouth dropped open. Yes. Robert's eyes softened. That's the one. Emma felt like the world had tilted. I'm not the owner, Robert said quickly. But I work directly with them. And I can tell you something. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. We're renovating the units, he said. The new management plans to keep reliable tenants and even adjust rent based on income for families who need it. Emma couldn't speak. Come by the office Monday, he continued. Ask for me. Let's see what we can do. Monday couldn't come fast enough. Emma walked into the office building downtown, nervous but hopeful. Robert greeted her with a wide smile. Over the next hour, paperwork was reviewed, income verified, and numbers discussed. At the end of it, the property manager looked at Emma and said, We'd be happy to renew your lease at a reduced rate. And we'll lock it in for 2 years. Emma covered her mouth as tears spilled over. She wouldn't have to move. Caleb wouldn't have to change schools. They were safe. As she stepped outside with Robert, she shook her head in disbelief. This feels like a miracle, she said. Robert smiled gently. It started with coffee. They stood there quietly for a moment, the city noise humming around them. You saved me that day, Robert said. Emma shook her head. No. You saved yourself. He nodded. Maybe. But your kindness was the spark. That winter morning at the bus stop could have gone differently. Emma could have looked away. She could have stayed on the bench and protected her last few dollars. No one would have blamed her, but she chose kindness, and that choice came back to her in a way she never expected. The truth is, we rarely get to see how our small actions ripple out into the world. We don't see the invisible threads connecting one moment to another, but they're there. A warm cup of coffee. A few minutes of eye contact. A reminder to someone that they matter. Kindness doesn't always come back in dramatic ways. Sometimes it simply changes a day. Sometimes it saves a life, and sometimes, at a cold bus stop in Chicago, it turns into a miracle. So the next time you're faced with a choice, to look away or to lean in, remember Emma and Robert. You never know what story you're stepping into, and you never know whose miracle you might become. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists. Because in a world that can feel cold and hurried, your small act might be the warmth someone is praying for, and that is how miracles begin.